17 families had looked at Elijah Webb. 17 had walked away. Now the boy stood at the frosted window of St. Mary's Orphanage, watching the Hendersons' wagon disappear down the snow-covered road. He didn't press his hand to the glass anymore. He'd stopped doing that around family number 12. Behind him, the other children whispered, the cripple, the twisted one. He'd learned not to turn around. His crutch creaked under his arm. His breath fogged the window, then faded. Sister Margaret's hand found his shoulder. Eli, that's all right, sister. His voice came out flat. Practiced. I was just wondering what time supper is. He didn't look at her. Just watched the wagon grow smaller until the white swallowed it whole. Some questions weren't worth asking anymore. He was 10 years old, and he already knew. Hope was just another word for waiting to be hurt. The richest man in 3 counties hadn't set foot in St. Mary's Orphanage in 8 years. The last time, he'd carried a small pine coffin to the cemetery behind the church. Now Silas Crane stood in the doorway like a man walking back into a fire he'd started himself. Sister Margaret met him in the front hall. Her face shifted through recognition, surprise, and something guarded before settling into professional warmth. Mr. Crane, it's been some time, 8 years. He didn't elaborate. His coat was fine wool, but the elbows were worn. His boots were expensive, caked with mud. Nothing about him matched. Heard you need boys for ranch work. One's old enough to be useful. We have several who might suit. Strong boys, healthy. A crash from the hallway. Wood clattering on wood. A voice, sharp with frustration. I said I can carry it myself. Silas turned before Sister Margaret could redirect him. Through the doorway, he saw a boy on the floor. Twisted right leg, bent awkward beneath him, spilled water bucket, a hand-carved crutch just out of reach, 2 older boys stepping around him like he was furniture, one of them smirking. Nobody helped him up. The boy didn't ask them to. He was already dragging himself toward the crutch, jaw clenched, face red. Not from embarrassment, Silas realized, but from the effort of not giving them the satisfaction. Silas moved before he decided to. 3 long strides. He crouched beside the boy, putting himself between the kid and the smirking ones. Didn't look at them, just at him. You hurt? The boy's eyes snapped up, dark, sharp, assessing. This wasn't the soft-voiced pity he was used to. This man wasn't tilting his head or clucking his tongue. I'm fine, sir. Didn't ask if you were fine, asked if you were hurt. A pause. The boy's jaw loosened a fraction. No, sir, just clumsy. You ain't clumsy. Silas picked up the crutch, handed it over. Then he righted the bucket, walked to the pump in the corner, filled it halfway, and brought it back. That bucket's too big for one hand. Try it now. Both hands. Let the crutch wait. The boy stared at him. Then at the bucket, then back at him. Slowly he took it. Both hands. It was manageable. Huh. Oh, common sense ain't common. Silas stood, knees cracking. What's your name? Elijah, sir. Most call me Eli. Silas. No handshake. Just the name, dropped like a stone into still water. Sister Margaret appeared in the doorway, slightly breathless. Mr. Crane. I apologize. The boys can be cruel. That ain't news. He was still looking at Eli. How old are you? 10, sir. 11 in March. You read? Yes, sir. Better than most. Numbers? Yes, sir. You always answer questions this short? Something flickered in the boy's face. Not quite a smile. Depends on who's asking, sir. Silas almost laughed. Almost. He turned to Sister Margaret instead. Show me the others. They walked the dormitory. Sister Margaret presented her healthy, strong, eager boys like livestock at auction. Good teeth, clear eyes, sturdy builds. Each one straightened when Silas passed, hoping to be chosen. He nodded at each, said nothing. Through it all, Eli had drifted to the window at the end of the hall. Same frosted glass, same distant gaze. The bucket sat at his feet, delivered despite the fall. Any of these suit your needs, Mr. Crane? Sister Margaret's voice was hopeful. Silas was looking at the window. At the boy who wasn't looking back. That one. The one with the leg. Sister Margaret's expression tightened. Mr. Crane, Eli isn't suited for ranch work. His condition. What condition? He's got a twisted leg. He ain't got a twisted head. 17 families have looked at him. 17 have decided. I ain't asking what they decided. I'm asking if he can think. He's the brightest child we've ever had. Reads everything, remembers everything, but then he'll do. He crossed to the window. The other boys watched, confused, some resentful. The cripple? Him? Eli didn't turn until Silas was 3 feet away. When he did, his face was carefully blank, waiting for the catch. You want to work a ranch? Sir? Horses, cattle, books and ledgers, cold mornings, hard winters. You interested? Or you want to stay here and haul water for boys who won't help you up? Eli's hands tightened on his crutch. You know I can't walk right. I know. Most folks think that means I can't do much of anything. Most folks are fools. Silas paused. Let the words settle. What do you think? The boy's throat moved. For a moment his armor cracked, just a flash of something raw underneath. Then it sealed over. I think I can do more than they let me try. Then let's try. Silas turned toward Sister Margaret. Draw up whatever papers you need. I'll be back Thursday to collect them. Mr. Crane. Sister Margaret stepped forward, voice low. A word. In private. They moved to the corner. Eli stayed at the window, but his head was tilted, listening. Silas? She used his first name deliberately. That boy has been hurt more times than you know. If you're doing this out of guilt or charity, or some notion of, I'm doing this because he answered my questions straight and didn't whine when he fell. Silas met her eyes. That's more than most men twice his age. And if it doesn't work, if he's too much or not enough, or you change your mind, I won't. You can't promise that? No. He glanced at Eli. The boy was still at the window, but he'd turned just enough to see them, still waiting for the catch. I can't promise anything. Neither can you. Neither can those 17 families who walked away. He settled his hat on his head. But I can show up Thursday. That's a start. He walked past her, paused at the door, and looked back at Eli. Thursday. Be ready. Then he was gone. Boot heels echoing down the hall. Eli stood at the window for a long time after. His hand rose toward the glass, then stopped, hovering an inch away. He didn't press it. Not yet. But he didn't drop it either. The Crane Ranch house had 12 rooms and one lamp lit. Eli stood in the kitchen doorway, crutch under his arm, and understood something he couldn't name yet. This man wasn't rich. He was haunted. Thursday had come. Sister Margaret had hugged him too long at the door, pressed a small Bible into his hands, whispered something about writing letters. The other boys had watched from the dormitory window, not waving, just watching. Eli hadn't looked back. Now the wagon sat outside a house that could hold 20 people and held one. Kitchen's through there. Pump works. Stove's temperamental, but she'll light if you talk nice to her. Silas set Eli's small bag, everything he owned fit in a flour sack, on the table. Supper's in an hour. Your room's upstairs, second door on the left. Yes, sir. Silas paused at the door. You need help with the stairs? No, sir. A nod, then he was gone, bootsteps fading toward the barn. Eli stood alone in the kitchen. The lamp flickered. Outside, wind pressed against the windows. Not the same frosted glass as St. Mary's, but glass all the same. He could see his reflection, distorted and dark. He made himself move. The stairs were hard. 18 steps, and each one announced him. Thud step, his crutch and his good leg working together while his twisted one dragged behind. By the top, his arms ached and his breath came short. The hallway stretched left and right, 3 doors on each side. He counted to the second on the left and pushed it open. A bed, a washstand, a window with plain curtains, clean sheets that smelled like cedar, and something else. Lavender, maybe. Someone had made this room ready, recently. Eli sat on the bed, didn't unpack, just sat. Through the wall, he could hear the wind. Through the floor, nothing. The house was so quiet it felt like holding your breath. This is temporary, he told himself. Don't unpack. Don't settle, don't hope. But his hand moved anyway, smoothing the quilt, feeling the stitching. Someone had made this. Someone had cared, once. He pulled his hand back and tucked it under his leg. Supper was beans, salt pork, and bread that tasted like it had been baked 3 days ago. Silas ate like a man completing a task. Methodical, joyless. Eli picked at his food. You don't like beans? I like 'em fine, sir. Then eat. Eli ate. The silence pressed down on them, heavier than the food. You always this quiet? Silas asked. Depends on whether talking's welcome, sir. Silas's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Something shifted in his expression, not a smile, but a crack in the stone. Talking's welcome. Just don't expect much back. Yes, sir. They finished eating. Eli stood to clear the plates, but his crutch caught the table leg and he stumbled, catching himself on the chair. One plate slid toward the edge. Silas's hand shot out, caught it. Sorry, Eli said automatically. I'm sorry, Plate's not broken. I know, but then it ain't a problem. Silas set the plate down, took both dishes to the basin. Stop apologizing for things that didn't happen. Eli stared at his back. At the orphanage, you apologized for everything. For breathing too loud, for taking too long, for existing in spaces that weren't meant for you. Yes, sir? And stop calling me sir. Makes me feel old. What should I call you? Silas turned. The lamp caught the lines around his eyes, deeper than they should be for a man his age. Silas is fine. For now. Eli heard the words underneath. Until you leave. Until this doesn't work. until I change my mind. He nodded and said nothing. That night, lying in the cedar-scented bed, Eli listened to the house. Floorboards creaking, wind in the eaves, and footsteps slow, heavy, moving from room to room downstairs. Silas wasn't sleeping either. Eli turned toward the wall and closed his eyes. But he didn't sleep for a long time. The days found a rhythm. Eli woke before dawn, habit from the orphanage, where late risers missed breakfast. But here, the kitchen was warm when he came down, and there was always coffee on the stove. Silas never said good morning. He just nodded toward the pot and went back to whatever he was reading. Work, Eli learned, wasn't what he'd expected. "You ain't hauling feed or breaking horses," Silas told him the second morning. "You're doing the work that needs a brain." He set a ledger in front of Eli. Columns of numbers, scratched handwriting, dates going back years. "These are the ranch accounts. Cattle bought, cattle sold, feed costs, equipment. Previous foreman kept them, but he couldn't add worth a damn. I need someone to make sense of it." Eli looked at the pages, looked at Silas. "You want me to do your books?" "I want you to fix them, then keep them." Silas poured himself more coffee. "That a problem?" "No," he caught himself. "No." "Good. Start with 1891. That's where the mess begins." It was real work. Hard, in a different way than hauling water. His mind ached instead of his arms. But by the third day, he'd found the foreman's errors. By the fifth, he'd restructured the entire system. Silas looked at his work that evening, said nothing for a long moment. "Huh. Is it wrong? It's better than anything I could have done." He closed the ledger. "You eat yet?" That became the rhythm. Work, meals, silence. But the silence started to change. It wasn't empty anymore. It was comfortable. Two people learning how to breathe in the same space. On the 8th night, Eli passed the door at the end of the hall. He'd noticed it before. Always closed. No light underneath. He'd assumed it was storage, or empty, or none of his business. But tonight, coming back from the outhouse, he saw. The door was cracked open, just an inch, and through that inch, moonlight on a small bed, a rocking horse in the corner, toys on a shelf, arranged with care, untouched by time, a child's room, perfectly preserved, like someone had just stepped out and never come back. Eli's crutch creaked. The door swung shut. From the far end of the hall, footsteps. Silas, emerging from his own room, face unreadable in the dark, they looked at each other. "That room stays closed." Silas's voice was flat, not angry, just final. "Yes, sir." Neither of them corrected the sir this time. Silas walked past him down the stairs. A moment later, the front door opened and closed. Eli heard boot steps on the porch, then nothing. He stood in the hallway for a long time. Then he went to his room, closed his door, and sat on the bed. The cedar smell was familiar now. The quilt felt like something that belonged to him. But through the wall, he could feel it. The other room, the locked grief. The thing Silas carried that he couldn't or wouldn't put down. We're the same, Eli thought. Both of us dragging something that won't let us walk straight. He didn't know if that made things better or worse. In the morning, neither of them mentioned it. Silas made coffee. Eli opened the ledger. The silence was different now. Heavier, but not hostile. Like they'd both acknowledged a wound without touching it. "Storm's coming," Silas said, looking out the window. 2, maybe 3 days out. We'll need to stock up." "Oh, yes, sir." Silas paused. Then quietly. "You can call me Silas. I told you that." "I know." Eli didn't look up from the numbers. "Just takes me a while to trust that things won't change." A long pause. "Fair enough," Silas said, and something in the room shifted. Not much, just enough. The shadow of the locked room hung between them, but so did the coffee, the ledger, the rhythm of mornings. For now, that was enough. Eli had been at the Stillwater 3 weeks when he realized the truth. Silas Crane wasn't teaching him to work a ranch. He was teaching him how to belong somewhere. It was in the small things. The hook by the door where Silas hung his coat, and now where Eli hung his. The chair at the kitchen table that was his chair, the one with the worn armrest, positioned so his crutch could lean against the wall. The way Silas had moved the coffee pot to a lower shelf without comment so Eli could reach it himself. Nobody had ever rearranged a room for him before. "You're thinking loud," Silas said one evening. They were in the study, fire crackling. Eli bent over the ledgers while Silas mended a harness. "I can hear it from here." "Sorry." Didn't say stop. Said I could hear it. Silas's hands kept moving, needle through leather. "What's rattling around in there?" Eli set down his pen. The question felt like a door being held open, not pushed, just available. "I was thinking about the room, the locked one." Silas's hands stilled, just for a moment, then they resumed. "What about it?" "Nothing. Just wondering." "Wondering what?" Eli chose his words like stepping across ice. Wondering if you'd tell me, someday, when you're ready. The fire popped. Outside, wind scraped branches against the window. His name was Thomas. Eli didn't move. My son. He was 6 when he died. Scarlet fever took him. Took his mother too, Clara. Silas's voice was flat, like he was reading from a telegram. Same winter, 1 week apart. I buried them both behind the house. I saw the stones, Eli said quietly. I wasn't prying. I just saw them when I was walking. I know. Silas set down the harness. His hands rested on his knees, empty. That room was his. I haven't been inside it in a long time. Keeping it closed felt like keeping him safe. That doesn't work, though. The words came out before Eli could stop them. Keeping things closed, it doesn't make them safe. It just makes them... He stopped. Makes them what? Eli looked at the fire. Alone. Silence. The kind that had weight. You're too smart for 10 years old, Silas said finally. Anyone ever tell you that? Sister Margaret. Usually when I said something she didn't want to hear, something that might have been a laugh escaped Silas's chest. Not quite, but close. Yeah, I can see that. He stood, crossed to the desk in the corner, and opened a drawer. When he came back, he was holding a piece of paper, yellowed at the edges. Thomas drew this. A couple weeks before he got sick, he handed it to Eli. A child's drawing. Crude shapes, bright colors faded with time. A man, tall, a woman, smiling, a small boy between them. And next to the boy, another figure, smaller, roughly sketched. That's me and Clara. That's Thomas. Silas pointed to each figure, then his finger rested on the smaller shape. I asked him who that was. He said, that's my brother, the one I'm going to have someday. Eli's throat tightened. He didn't have a brother, never would. Clara couldn't... Silas stopped, started again. But he drew one anyway, like he knew something was coming, something he wanted. The paper trembled slightly in Eli's hands. He set it down carefully on the table between them. Why are you showing me this? Silas sat back in his chair. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Because you asked, and because you didn't push. He picked up the harness again, though his hands didn't move to stitch. Most people push, want the whole story right away, want to fix things, want to say something that makes it better. You just waited. Waiting's what I'm good at? No. Silas looked at him. Waiting's what you're used to. What you're good at is seeing. You see things other people miss. Eli didn't know what to say to that. So he said nothing. Outside, the wind shifted. Snow began to fall, soft and silent, catching the light from the window. Storm's getting closer, Silas said. Couple more days. Yes, sir. Silas. Eli hesitated. The name felt heavy in his mouth, like something borrowed. Silas, he said. It came out rough. Unpracticed, but real. Silas nodded once, and something in the room settled, like a held breath finally released. The days that followed were different. Not easier. The work was still hard. The silences still long. But there was something underneath now, like a current running through the house. An unspoken agreement. We've shown each other something. We can't go back. Eli found himself noticing things he hadn't before. The way Silas paused at Thomas's drawing whenever he passed the desk. Just a glance, barely a second. But always. The way he left the study door open now, even when he was working alone. Small gestures that said, you're allowed here. And Silas noticed things too. Your leg bothering you more in the cold? They were in the barn. Eli perched on a hay bale while Silas checked the horse's hooves. The question came without preamble, without looking up. Some. It gets stiff. There's liniment in the cabinet above the stove. Horse liniment, but it works on people too. Smells like hell, but it helps. You've used it? Broke my ankle years back. Healed wrong. And Silas moved to the next horse. Some mornings I can barely walk. Most people don't notice. Eli filed that away. Another piece of the puzzle. Another thing they shared. Thank you for telling me. Nothing to thank, just fact. But it wasn't just fact. It was trust. Offered sideways, the way men like Silas offered things. Not wrapped in words, but laid out quietly and left for you to pick up. That evening, Silas went to the locked room. Eli heard the key turn from where he sat in the kitchen, ledger open, pen in hand. He didn't move. Didn't breathe too loud, just listened. The door opened, closed. Silence for a long time. When Silas came downstairs, he was carrying something. He set it on the table between them. A wooden horse. Small, beautifully carved, sanded smooth. The mane was a series of careful grooves. The eyes were 2 dark knots in the wood. Positioned was just right. I made this for Thomas, Silas said. He was holding it when he died. Eli's hands stayed flat on the table. He didn't reach for it. His last day, he was too weak to talk much, but he managed one thing. Silas's voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. He said, "Pa, will you make me another one for my brother someday?" The fire crackled. Snow ticked against the windows. I told him I would. He smiled. Then he was gone. Silas touched the horse's mane, just barely. 8 years I've kept this locked up. Told myself I was protecting it, protecting him, but you were right. Keeping things closed just makes them alone. Eli looked at the horse, at Silas, at the 8 years of grief sitting on the table between them. "You're not giving it to me." It wasn't a question. Silas shook his head. "Not yet. I ain't ready." He slid the horse toward Eli just an inch. "But I wanted you to see it, to know it exists. To know—" He stopped, started again. "To know I'm thinking about what comes next." Eli nodded slowly. His hand moved towards the horse, then stopped, hovering, like his hand at the window that first day. "Can I touch it?" "Yeah." He did, just his fingertips tracing the mane. The wood was warm from Silas's hands. "It's beautiful." "Thomas thought so." A pause. "He'd have liked you." The words hit somewhere deep, a place Eli didn't have armor for. His eyes stung. He blinked it back. "I would have liked him too." They sat there, the horse between them, the storm building outside, the silence inside no longer empty. Later in bed, Eli stared at the ceiling. His hand rested on his chest, fingers still remembering the grain of the wood. "For my brother someday." Thomas had drawn a figure that didn't exist, asked for a horse to be made for someone who hadn't been born. Eli had spent 6 years pressing his hand to windows, watching families leave. 17 times he'd been told he wasn't enough. But Thomas had wanted someone, had made space for someone, without even knowing who. Maybe, Eli thought, being wanted doesn't start with you. Maybe it starts with someone deciding there's room. He didn't know if Silas had decided yet. But the horse was out of the locked room. The door was open. For now, that was enough. The Cartwrights arrived on a Sunday, their wagon polished to a shine that had no business on a Montana road in winter. Eli saw them from the kitchen window and knew before they stepped down, they'd come to take him away. The only question was whether Silas would let them. He'd seen that look before. The appraising eyes, the tilted heads, the way decent people looked at broken things and saw projects instead of people. Eli. Silas stood in the doorway, face unreadable. "We got visitors." "I see them." "You know who they are?" "No, sir." He caught himself. "No. Name's Cartwright. John and Adelaide. Come from Helena." Silas's jaw tightened. "They got 2 children already, healthy ones. They've been following your situation." Following your situation, like he was a newspaper story. A cause. "What do they want?" Silas didn't answer. He didn't have to. The parlor hadn't been used since Eli arrived. Dust cloths covered the furniture. Silas pulled them off with sharp, angry movements while Eli stood in the corner, crutch under his arm, watching. John Cartwright was 40, maybe 45. Good suit, soft hands, the kind of voice that expected to be listened to. Adelaide was younger, pretty in a careful way, her smile too wide and too fixed. They sat on the uncovered settee like they owned it. Sister Margaret was there too. She hadn't wanted to come. Eli could see it in the way she held her rosary, knuckles white, but she'd had to. And Judge Bellamy. Of course, Judge Bellamy. "Mr. Crane." Bellamy's voice was warm, paternal, insufferable. "Thank you for receiving us on short notice." Didn't have much choice. Silas remained standing. "You drove up to my house. What was I supposed to do? Shoot you?" Adelaide laughed nervously. John's smile tightened. "We understand this is irregular," John said, "but we've been concerned about Elijah's welfare. We followed his case for some time, and when we heard he'd been placed here—" "Placed." And Silas cut him off. "He wasn't placed. I asked for him." "Of course, but you're not his legal guardian. There's no formal arrangement. You're simply employing him." "He's 10 years old. I ain't employing him. I'm raising him." The room went quiet. Eli's heart hammered against his ribs. Adelaide leaned forward, her voice honeyed. "Mr. Crane, we're not here to cause trouble. We simply want what's best for Elijah. A stable home, a mother figure, siblings his own age. Surely you can understand." "I understand plenty." Silas hadn't moved, but something in him had shifted. Harder, colder. "I understand you got a nice house and nice children, and everything looks real nice from the outside. I also understand you don't know a damn thing about this boy except what's in a file somewhere." "Silas." Judge Bellamy rose, one hand raised in a peacekeeping gesture. "Let's not make this adversarial. No one is accusing you of anything. We're simply asking questions, doing our due diligence. Due diligence. Silas's voice was flat. You've known me 30 years, Horace. You knew my father. You came to Clara's funeral, Thomas's too. Now you're standing in my parlor asking if I'm fit to raise a child. I'm standing in your parlor because the law requires it. Bellamy's voice hardened slightly. The Cartwrights have filed formal adoption papers. Sister Margaret was obligated to notify all interested parties. That includes you, and it includes the court. Eli felt the floor tilt beneath him. Adoption papers. They weren't just looking, they were claiming. The court will decide, Bellamy continued. But I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the obvious concerns. You're a widower, you live alone, or you did until recently. You haven't attended church in 8 years. You've shown no interest in family life since your loss. He paused, letting the words land. Some might say you're not equipped for fatherhood. Not anymore. Silas's hands clenched at his sides. Some might say a lot of things. Don't make them right. And some might say, Adelaide added softly, that a boy with Elijah's condition needs special care. Care that a single man, no matter how well-intentioned, simply cannot provide. Condition. The word hung in the air like smoke. Eli saw them all look at him, at his crutch, his twisted leg, the way he stood crooked against the wall. He saw them see what 17 families had seen. Broken, burden, problem to be solved. Something cracked inside him, not loud, just a small, quiet snap. It's all right. Every head turned. Eli stepped forward. His crutch tapped against the floor. Tap, tap, tap. And the sound filled the silence. I'll go with them. Eli, Silas started. It's fine. His voice was steady, practiced. The same voice he'd used 17 times before. They're a real family. Nice house, nice children, nice everything. His throat tightened, but he forced the words out. I'm just a boy who can't walk right. Who needs too much? Stop. Silas crossed the room in 3 strides. Eli flinched, couldn't help it, but Silas didn't touch him, just stood there, close enough that Eli had to look up to meet his eyes. You really believe that? That you're too much? That you're not worth keeping? Eli didn't answer. Couldn't answer. 17 families had taught him exactly what to believe. Silas crouched, eye level. His voice dropped low enough that only Eli heard. You remember that horse I showed you? The one Thomas was holding when he died? Eli nodded. You remember what I told you he said? His last words? Another nod. Pa, will you make me another one? For my brother someday. Silas's voice cracked, just barely. He didn't have a brother, never would, but he was already thinking about someone else, making room for someone he'd never meet. He paused. That's who he was. That's who I want to be, if you'll let me. Eli's vision blurred. He blinked, but the tears came anyway, the first tears he'd cried in years. I don't understand. I know. Silas stood, faced the room. You want to take this boy? Fine. Go through the courts. File your papers. Bring your lawyers. He looked at Bellamy, then the Cartwrights, then Sister Margaret. But he's not going anywhere today. Not until he chooses to. John Cartwright's face reddened. Crane, you have no legal standing. I'm filing for adoption. The words dropped like stones into still water. Bellamy blinked. You're... what? You heard me. I'm filing for adoption. Today. Whatever papers you need, I'll sign them. Silas's voice was steady now, iron underneath. This boy has been looked at and passed over 17 times. 17 families saw his leg and decided he was broken. I saw his leg and decided he could carry a water bucket if he used both hands. That's the difference. Adelaide opened her mouth, closed it. This isn't over, Bellamy said quietly. The court will have questions about your fitness, about your stability. Let them ask. Silas moved to the door, held it open. Now get out of my house. They left. The Cartwrights first, stiff with indignation. Sister Margaret paused at the door, looked at Eli, looked at Silas, and nodded once, something like hope in her eyes. Bellamy was last. He stopped on the threshold. This isn't kindness, Silas. It's stubbornness, and it won't end well. Maybe. Silas met his gaze. But it's my choice, not yours. The door closed. The wagon wheels crunched on snow. Silence filled the house. Eli stood in the middle of the parlor, tears drying on his cheeks, crutch shaking in his grip. Sir? His voice came out small. Why did you do that? Silas turned. The anger was gone from his face. What remained was something quieter, sadder, truer, because Thomas asked me to make that horse for a brother. He crossed to Eli, stopped an arm's length away. I couldn't give him one, but maybe, he paused. Maybe I can give someone a father. The words hung between them, Outside, the sky was darkening. The storm Silas had been predicting was finally here. What if the court says no? Eli whispered. Then we fight. What if we lose? Silas looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and rested his hand on Eli's shoulder. The first time he'd touched him since the bucket. Heavy, warm, real. Then we lose together, but we don't give up. Eli's hand came up, shaking, hesitant, and rested on top of Silas's. He didn't have words, not yet, but he had this. The blizzard came 3 nights later, and with it came a choice that would break whatever was left of Silas Crane's heart. It started as wind. Just wind, rattling the shutters, moaning through the eaves. Eli woke to it in the dark, listened for a moment, then rolled over and tried to sleep. By dawn, the world had disappeared. White. Nothing but white. The barn was a gray smudge 50 feet from the house. Beyond that, nothing. The sky and the ground had merged into a single howling void. Stay inside. Silas was already dressed, pulling on his heavy coat, his gloves, his hat pulled low. Don't open the door for anything. Where are you going? Cattle. They'll drift with the wind, pile up against fences, suffocate. I need to turn them. He paused at the door. There's food in the pantry. Wood by the stove. You'll be fine. I could help. No. The word was sharp, final, then softer. Your leg, the snow. You'd die out there, Eli. I need you to stay alive. He was gone before Eli could answer. The hours crawled. Eli kept the fire burning. Made coffee. He didn't drink. Sat at the window and watched the white swallow everything. His crutch leaned against the wall. Useless. What good was he? What good was a boy who couldn't walk through snow, couldn't help, couldn't do anything but wait? Waiting's what you're good at. No. Silas had said that wasn't true. Silas had said he was good at seeing, but what good was seeing when there was nothing to see but white? Midday, the storm screamed louder. Eli was in the study, pretending to work on the ledgers, when he heard the back door bang open. He grabbed his crutch, moved as fast as he could to the kitchen. Silas stood in the doorway, caked in snow, breathing hard. His face was red with cold, his eyebrows frosted white. Sarah's gone. What? The mare. Clara's mare. He was already stripping off his wet coat, reaching for a dry one. She spooked, broke through the fence. She's out there somewhere. Eli's stomach dropped. He'd seen the horse, old, half-blind, sweet-tempered. He'd fed her apples from his hand. She'll die out there. I know. Silas pulled on the dry coat. His hands were shaking, from cold or something else. Eli couldn't tell. You can't go back out. You just came in. You need to warm up. She was Clara's horse. Silas's voice cracked. Just a fraction. Clara rode her the day we met. She was there when Thomas was born. She's the last... He stopped, swallowed. She's the last living thing Clara touched. The words hung in the air, heavier than the storm. Eli understood then. This wasn't about a horse. This was about everything Silas had already lost, and the one piece he couldn't bear to lose again. Then go. The words came out before Eli could stop them. Go find her. I'll keep the lamps lit. Silas looked at him. Really looked. Like he was seeing something he hadn't expected. Every lamp in the house, Eli continued. Every window, so you can find your way back. A moment stretched between them. Then Silas nodded once, pulled his hat down, and stepped back into the white. The door slammed shut. Eli stood alone in the kitchen, the silence rushing in to fill the space where Silas had been. He lit every lamp. Every window in the house blazed. Eli moved from room to room, striking matches, trimming wicks, adjusting flames. His arms ached. His legs screamed at him. Twice he fell, caught himself, got back up. He even went to the locked room. The door was still closed. He hesitated, hand on the knob. Then he opened it. Thomas's room, untouched. The small bed, the rocking horse, the toys on their shelf. Lamplight from the hall, fell across the floor in pale stripes. Eli crossed to the window. His crutch was loud in the silence. He set a lamp on the sill, turned up the flame, and stepped back. For you too, he whispered, so he can find his way home. He closed the door behind him, left the lamp burning. Hours passed. The storm didn't stop. The lamps flickered but held. Eli sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, watching the door. He prayed. Not formal prayers. He'd forgotten most of those. Just words, thrown into the dark like stones into water. Please, please, please. He didn't know who he was asking. God? The storm? The universe that had already taken so much from both of them? Please, let him come back. Please don't make me lose someone again. Please. The clock ticked. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind screamed its answer. Nothing. He must have fallen asleep. One moment he was staring at the door. The next he was jerking awake to a sound. A thump, heavy and wrong, against the front of the house. Eli scrambled up, grabbed his crutch, half fell toward the door. His hands shook as he lifted the latch. The wind hit him like a fist. Snow poured into the kitchen. And there, collapsed across the threshold, was Silas. He was covered in ice. His lips were blue. His eyes were closed. Behind him, barely visible through the white, stood Sarah, the mare, alive. No. No, no, no! Eli dropped to his knees, grabbed Silas's coat, pulled with everything he had. His legs screamed. His arms burned. He didn't care. Don't you die. Don't you dare die. You promised we'd lose together. Don't you leave me alone. Eli didn't know how long it took to drag Silas inside. Minutes. Hours. Time had stopped meaning anything except move and pull and don't let go. His crutch was gone. Somewhere behind him, lost in the snow that poured through the open door. He used his hands, his arms, his one good leg, dragging Silas inch by inch across the kitchen floor while the storm howled its fury behind them. Finally, he got him far enough. Kicked the door shut with his twisted leg, screaming at the pain, not caring. Silas lay on the kitchen floor, unmoving, ice in his beard, frost on his eyelashes. His chest rose and fell, barely. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. Eli crawled to the stove, stoked the fire until it roared, then back to Silas, stripping off the frozen coat with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking, piling blankets from the settee, the chairs, anywhere he could reach. Wake up. His voice cracked. Please wake up. Silas didn't stir. Outside, Sarah stood at the window, pressing her nose to the glass. Eli would deal with her later. Right now, the lamps. They were still burning. Every window in the house, blazing against the dark, a beacon in the white. Eli found his crutch by the door, wedged under a drift of snow. He grabbed it, hauled himself up, and checked every lamp, adjusted every wick, made sure the light held. Then he came back to Silas and sat down on the floor beside him. I can't carry you to bed, he said to the unconscious man. I can't get the doctor. I can't do anything except, his voice broke, except stay, so I'm staying. He pulled a blanket over both of them and pressed his back against Silas's side, sharing what warmth he had. The fire crackled. The storm raged. Eli closed his eyes and listened to Silas breathe. Sometime in the night, the breathing changed. Eli woke to Silas coughing, a wet, horrible sound that sent ice down his spine. He scrambled up, found water, held the cup to Silas's cracked lips. Drink. Come on, drink. Silas's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, lost. Clara? The name hit Eli like a blow. No. He kept his voice steady, somehow. It's Eli. You're home. You made it home. Clara, I'm sorry. Silas's hand came up, grasping at nothing. I should have been there. I should have... Silas. Eli caught his hand, held it. Silas, it's me. You're safe. But Silas wasn't hearing him. He was somewhere else. 8 years ago, in a room with a dying wife, a dying son, a world collapsing around him. Thomas. The word was a moan. Thomas, pause here. Pause right here. Don't go. Please don't. Eli's throat closed. He held Silas's hand tighter and didn't let go. I couldn't save them. Silas's voice was a ragged whisper. I tried. I tried everything. But they slipped away, and I couldn't... He was crying now. Eli had never seen him cry. I couldn't hold on. You held on to me, Eli said. His own eyes were burning. You held on. You came back. The light. Silas's eyes found his, finally present. I saw the light. In the windows. All of them. I lit them. Every one. Eli's voice shook. You told me to stay inside. You told me I couldn't help. But I could do that. I could make sure you found your way home. Silas's hand squeezed his. Weak, but real. You did. The fever came with dawn. Eli nursed him through it, changed wet cloths on his forehead, boiled broth and spooned it into his mouth, drop by drop. Read aloud from the Bible Sister Margaret had given him. Not because he thought God was listening, but because the words filled the silence. Sister Margaret came when the roads cleared. 3 days later, she brought the doctor, she brought food, she brought news. The Cartwrights had filed a motion. The hearing was scheduled, but Eli barely heard her. He was watching Silas sleep, real sleep now, not the terrible half-death of the fever. His color was better, his breathing was steady. You love him, Sister Margaret said quietly. Eli didn't look away from the bed. He's the first person who ever thought I was worth keeping. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. She touched his shoulder, didn't push. On the fourth night, Silas woke clear-headed for the first time. Eli was asleep in the chair beside the bed, head tilted at an angle that would hurt in the morning. Silas watched him for a long moment. This boy who'd dragged him in from the cold, who'd lit every lamp in a house full of ghosts, who'd sat beside him through the worst of it. You stayed. Eli stirred, blinked awake. You're up. I'm up. Silas's voice was raw but steady. You stayed. Where else would I go? The question hung in the air. Both of them knew the answer. Anywhere. The Cartwrights. Another orphanage. Somewhere with a mother and siblings and everything a boy was supposed to want. But he'd stayed. Why? Silas asked. Eli was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Because when you were sick, you kept saying their names. Clara, Thomas. You kept saying you couldn't hold on. He swallowed. But you held on to my hand. All night. You didn't let go. He looked at Silas, eyes wet. Nobody ever held on to me before. Silas closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet too. I heard you, reading, praying. His voice cracked. I thought I was dying. I thought I'd finally see them again. But then I heard your voice, and I thought... He stopped, started again. I thought, I can't go yet. Someone's waiting for me. I was, Eli whispered. I am. Silas reached out, took his hand. Then I guess we're both done waiting. They sat there, in the gray light of a winter morning, while the last of the storm died outside. Two broken people. Holding on, Silas healed. But the boy stopped smiling, and Silas was too afraid to ask why, because he already knew the answer. The fever broke on the 5th day. By the 7th, Silas was sitting up, eating solid food, complaining about being confined to bed. By the 10th, he was walking, slowly, carefully, leaning on furniture when he thought no one was watching. Eli watched. He always watched. That was his gift, his curse. He saw the way Silas favored his left side, where the cold had bitten deepest. He saw the way the man's hands trembled when he held his coffee cup. He saw the shadows under his eyes that sleep wouldn't touch. But Silas saw things too. He saw Eli pull away. Not physically. The boy still made breakfast, still tended the fire, still sat in his chair at the table with the ledgers open. But something had closed behind his eyes. The questions had stopped. The almost smiles had vanished. He was packing invisible bags again. The hearings in 6 days. Sister Margaret had told them during her last visit. Judge Bellamy has scheduled it for Monday next. The Cartwrights will be there. Their lawyer will argue that Eli belongs with a complete family. She'd paused, looked at both of them. You need to be ready. Silas had nodded. Eli had said nothing. That night, Silas found him at the window in the upstairs hallway. Not his bedroom window, but the one that looked out over the graves behind the house. 2 stones, half buried in snow. Clara, Thomas. Can't sleep? Eli didn't turn. I'm fine. Didn't ask if you were fine. A pause. Then quietly, I know. Silas moved to stand beside him. The window was cold. He could feel it radiating through the glass. Outside, the moon was full, casting blue shadows across the snow. You're thinking about leaving? It wasn't a question. Eli's shoulders tightened, but he didn't deny it. The Cartwrights have money, lawyers. They have a mother and a father, and 2 healthy children. His voice was flat, reciting facts. Judge Bellamy already thinks you're unfit. The whole town thinks you're... He stopped. Crazy? Haunted? Broken? Different. Eli's jaw clenched. They think you're too different. And I'm... His hand gestured at his leg, a sharp, frustrated motion. I'm too broken. Together, we're just 2 damaged things that don't make sense. Since when do you care what makes sense to other people? Since I figured out that other people get to decide where I live. The words hit Silas like a slap. Because they were true. Because they were the same words he'd been thinking. Late at night, staring at the ceiling. Eli, I should go with them. The boy's voice cracked, just barely. I should make it easy. Stand up in that courtroom and say I want to go. Say the Cartwrights are what's best for me. Then you don't have to fight. Then nobody has to... Stop. Eli fell silent. Silas turned away from the window. He couldn't look at the graves right now. Couldn't look at Clara and Thomas while he tried to find words he didn't have. You remember what I said? That first day at the orphanage? You said a lot of things. I asked what you thought, whether you could do more than people let you try. Silas faced him again. You said yes. You said you could. That was before... Before what? Before you dragged me in from a blizzard? Before you lit every lamp in a dead man's house? Before you sat by my bed for 4 days, reading scripture you don't even believe in? His voice rose, rougher than he intended. Before you saved my life? Eli flinched. I didn't save your life. The hell you didn't. You walked back. You found your way. Because of the lights. Because of you. As Silas stepped closer, I was lost out there. The snow, the dark, I couldn't tell up from down. I'd given up. I was lying in a drift thinking this is it, this is how it ends, and then I saw... His voice broke. I saw the light. coming from every window, and I thought, someone's waiting. Someone lit those lamps for me, and I got up. The silence that followed was absolute. You got up, Eli repeated. I got up. Because you were here. Silas put his hand on the boy's shoulder. So don't tell me you're too broken. Don't tell me we don't make sense. Don't you dare tell me you should leave so I don't have to fight. Eli's eyes were wet. He blinked hard, but the tears came anyway. What if we lose? Then we lose. What if they take me anyway? Then I'll appeal. I'll hire lawyers. I'll sell half this ranch if I have to. Silas's grip tightened. I'm not letting you go, Eli. Not because some judge says so. Not because some fancy family from Helena thinks they know what's best. The only way you leave this house is if you choose to. You understand me? Why? The word came out strangled. Why do you even care? I'm nobody. I'm just some crippled orphan you picked up because Thomas asked me to. Eli went still. His last words. Silas's voice was barely a whisper now. Make me another horse paw. For my brother someday, he wanted someone. His hand moved from Eli's shoulder to the back of his neck, gentle, almost unbearably so. He wanted you. I just didn't know it yet. The tears spilled over. Eli didn't wipe them away. I don't know how to have a family, he said. I don't know how to be a son. I've never, neither do I. Silas pulled him closer. Not quite a hug. Not yet, but close. I've been a father for 6 years and a ghost for 8. I don't know what I'm doing either. Then how? We figure it out, together. Same way we've been doing. He stepped back, hands on Eli's shoulders, looking him in the eye. But you have to choose it. I can't make you stay. I can fight the court. I can fight the Cartwrights. I can fight the whole damn town. But I can't fight you. If you want to go, I'll let you go. But I need you to tell me the truth. He waited. Eli stood there, trembling, tears still wet on his cheeks. His crutch was tight in his grip. His twisted leg ached from standing too long. But he didn't look away. I'm scared, he whispered. I know. What if I'm not enough? What if I disappoint you? What if... You won't. You can't know that. No. Silas's hands tightened. But I believe it. And sometimes that's all you get. Someone who believes in you when you can't believe in yourself. He paused. That's what family is. That's what Thomas taught me. Eli closed his eyes. Someone who believes in you when you can't believe in yourself. He thought about 17 families walking away, about handprints fading on cold glass, about all the times he'd told himself hope was just another word for hurt. But he also thought about lamps, about a man following light through a blizzard, about hands holding his in the dark. Okay, he breathed. Okay. He opened his eyes, met Silas's gaze. I'll stay. I'll fight. His voice steadied. I choose this. Silas exhaled, a sound like something finally breaking free. That's all I needed to hear. They stood at the window, looking out at the graves, at the snow, at the moon hanging low over a frozen world. Monday was coming. The fight was coming. But tonight, they had this. 2 broken people who'd chosen each other. It was enough. The courthouse smelled like paper and old wood and the kind of silence that judges mistakes for wisdom. Eli sat on a bench outside the hearing room, crutch across his lap, and waited for the world to decide where he belonged, like he had 17 times before. But this time was different. This time, he'd chosen. Silas sat beside him, dressed in his best suit, the one Clara had made him buy for their wedding, the one he hadn't worn since her funeral. It still fit, mostly. The shoulders were tight. The fabric smelled faintly of cedar and mothballs. You don't have to do this, Eli said quietly. Do what? Wear that suit, fight this fight, any of it. Silas looked at him. You trying to talk me out of it? No, just... Eli's fingers tightened on his crutch. Making sure you know. You can still walk away. I wouldn't blame you. Would you walk away? The question hung between them. No, Eli admitted. Then stop asking me to. The courthouse door opened. A clerk appeared, young, nervous, avoiding eye contact. Judge Bellamy will see you now. The hearing room was smaller than Eli expected. A raised bench for the judge, 2 tables facing it, one for the Cartwrights and their lawyer, one for Silas and Eli. A witness chair. A handful of wooden pews for spectators. The pews were full. Eli recognized faces from town. The general store clerk, the blacksmith, Mrs. Henderson from the dry goods shop. They'd come to watch, to judge, to see if the crazy rancher and the crippled orphan would make fools of themselves. Sister Margaret sat in the front row, rosary in hand. She caught Eli's eye and nodded once. Courage. The Cartwrights were already seated. John in his fine suit, Adelaide in her Sunday best. Their 2 children scrubbed and polished like show horses. Their lawyer was a thin man, with spectacles and a leather case full of papers. Judge Bellamy entered. Everyone rose, everyone sat. This hearing will determine the custody of the minor child Elijah Webb, Bellamy announced. The court has received a petition for adoption from John and Adelaide Cartwright of Helena. The court has also received a counter-petition from Silas Crane of Harlan County. He looked at Silas. Mr. Crane, you are not represented by counsel. Don't need a lawyer to tell the truth. A murmur from the pews. Bellamy's eyes narrowed. Very well, Mr. Whitmore, you may proceed. The Cartwright's lawyer stood. He was good. Eli could tell within the first minute. Smooth voice, careful words, the kind of man who made cruelty sound reasonable. Your Honor, my clients are upstanding members of the Helena community. Mr. Cartwright is a successful merchant. Mrs. Cartwright is a devoted mother. They have 2 healthy children of their own and have long desired to expand their family through the Christian act of adoption. He gestured toward Eli without looking at him. The child in question has special needs, a physical deformity that requires careful management, a history of behavioral difficulties. I don't have behavioral difficulties. The words came out before Eli could stop them. Bellamy's gavel cracked. The child will remain silent unless addressed. Eli's face burned. Silas's hand found his knee under the table. A brief pressure, steadying. Whitmore continued as if nothing had happened. A history of failed placements. 17 families have examined this child and found him unsuitable. The Cartwrights are willing to overlook these challenges and provide him with the stable, nurturing environment he requires. He paused for effect. Mr. Crane, by contrast, is a widower. He lives alone on an isolated ranch. He has not attended church in 8 years. He has no experience raising children. His own son died in infancy. Thomas was 6. Every head turned. Silas's voice was quiet, but it carried. My son Thomas was 6 years old when he died. Not an infant. He was a boy. He had a favorite color. Blue. He liked to draw horses. He was afraid of thunderstorms, but pretended not to be. Silas stood slowly. If you're going to talk about my family, get it right. Bellamy leaned forward. Mr. Crane, you are out of order. I'm out of patience. Silas didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. I've sat here and listened to this man talk about Eli like he's livestock at auction. Special needs, behavioral difficulties, failed placements. He looked at Whitmore. You know what I see when I look at that boy? I see someone who taught himself to read because nobody thought he was worth teaching. I see someone who can balance a ledger better than any foreman I've ever hired. I see someone who dragged me in from a blizzard and sat by my bed for 4 days because he refused to let me die. The murmur in the pews grew louder. I see someone, Silas continued, who's been told his whole life that he's broken, by families who couldn't be bothered to look past his leg, by courts that shuffled him from place to place like an inconvenience, by a world that decided he wasn't worth the trouble. He turned to Bellamy. You want to talk about what's best for him? Ask him. He's sitting right there. He's got a voice. He's got a mind. He's got more courage than anyone in this room. Silence. Bellamy's face was unreadable. Mr. Crane, this is a legal proceeding. Not a... Then let it be legal. Silas sat back down. Ask the boy what he wants. The room held its breath. Bellamy looked at Eli, at the crutch across his lap, at the 2 old eyes in the young face. Elijah. His voice was formal, but something underneath it had shifted. This court would hear from you, if you wish to speak. Eli looked at the Cartwrights, at their lawyer, at Sister Margaret, then at Silas. The man nodded once. Your choice. Eli stood. The crutch scraped against the floor, loud in the silence. He felt every eye in the room tracking him as he moved toward the front. Can I... His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Can I stand here instead of sitting? Bellamy hesitated, then nodded. Eli faced the room. His leg ached, his heart hammered. But his voice, when it came, was steady. I've been to 17 families. I've been to 17 families. Eli's voice carried through the silent room. 17 times someone came to St. Mary's looking for a child. 17 times they looked at me, at my leg, at the way I walk. He gripped his crutch tighter. 17 times they decided I was too much trouble, too broken, not worth keeping. He saw Adelaide Cartwright shift in her seat, saw John's jaw tighten. The Cartwrights seem nice. They've got a nice house and nice children and everything looks real nice. He let the words sit there, plain and flat. But I've learned something about nice. Nice isn't the same as true. Nice is what people are when they want something from you. True is what they are when it costs them something. He turned toward Silas. Mr. Crane isn't nice. He's honest. He doesn't tell me pretty things. He tells me what I need to hear. When I fell at the orphanage, he didn't help me up and pat my head and say, poor thing. He handed me my crutch and showed me how to carry a bucket with both hands. Eli's voice strengthened. He didn't look at my leg and see a problem. He looked at my leg and saw something I could work around. He faced the judge. I know what you're thinking. He's a widower. He lives alone. He's sad. Eli paused. But I've been alone my whole life. And I know what sad looks like from the inside. Crane isn't sad. He's healing. And he's letting me heal with him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the wooden horse. Silas made a small sound. Surprise, maybe something more. Eli had taken it from the study that morning without asking. He'd needed it. Needed to hold something Thomas had held. Mr. Crane's son made him promise to give this to his brother someday. Eli held it up so the light caught the carved mane. Thomas didn't have a brother, but he wanted one. He made room for someone who didn't exist yet. His voice dropped. That's what Mr. Crane did for me. He made room, not because I was perfect, not because I was easy, just because he swallowed, just because he decided I was worth it. He set the horse on the judge's bench. It sat there, small and simple and immeasurably heavy. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm asking you to let me choose. He met Bellamy's eyes directly. For the first time in my life, I know where I want to be. I know who I want to belong to. Please don't take that away. Silence. Then Bellamy spoke. Does the petitioner wish to respond? John Cartwright looked at his lawyer. Whitmore started to rise, papers in hand, then stopped. Adelaide was staring at Eli, at the horse, at Silas. Something in her expression had cracked. John cleared his throat. We withdraw the petition. A gasp from the pews. Mr. Cartwright? Bellamy's eyebrows rose. The boy has spoken. John's voice was stiff, but underneath it was that shame. We wouldn't wish to take him from a home where he's clearly... He trailed off. Couldn't finish. Adelaide finished for him. Loved. Her voice was barely a whisper. Where he's clearly loved. The word hung in the air like a bell still ringing. Bellamy looked at Silas, at Eli, at the wooden horse on his bench. This court finds in favor of the respondent. And his gavel fell, once sharp, final. Custody of Elijah Webb is hereby granted to Silas Crane. The adoption petition may proceed through standard channels. He paused. Court is adjourned. The room erupted. Voices, movement, people standing and talking. Sister Margaret was crying. The townspeople were murmuring, some disapproving, some surprised, some almost admiring. Eli didn't hear any of it. He was looking at Silas, who was looking at him, and neither of them could speak. Then Silas stood, crossed to him, put both hands on his shoulders. You kept the horse. I needed it. Eli's voice shook. I needed something to hold on to. Silas pulled him in, not gently, not carefully, but fierce and tight and real. Eli's crutch clattered to the floor. He didn't care. You've got me, Silas said into his hair. You don't need wood anymore. Eli held on and didn't let go. Spring came to Montana like a held breath finally released. The snow retreated in patches, revealing brown earth that softened more each day. The creek behind the Stillwater ran high and fast, swollen with meltwater. Birds returned, first one or two, then dozens, filling the mornings with sounds the house hadn't heard in months. And in a home that used to be empty, a boy learned what it meant to stop waiting. The adoption papers arrived on a Tuesday in April. Sister Margaret brought them herself, walking up the muddy road in boots that had seen better days, her face flushed from the climb, but her eyes bright. It's official, she said, setting the envelope on the kitchen table. All that's left is signatures. Eli stared at the envelope like it might bite him. Silas poured coffee, 3 cups now, always 3 cups when Sister Margaret visited, and sat down across from him. You want to open it, or should I? Eli's hand moved toward the envelope, stopped, moved again. What if there's a mistake? What if they change their minds? What if there's no mistake? But Sister Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. I watched Judge Bellamy sign it myself. Complained about the paperwork the whole time, but he signed. She smiled. He also said, and I quote, that boy's got more spine than half the men in this county. I believe that was meant as a compliment. Eli almost laughed. Almost. He opened the envelope. The paper inside was heavy, official, covered in careful script and stamps and seals. He read it slowly, every word like he was memorizing a prayer. Hereby granted full legal custody. Adoption finalized. Elijah Webb, hereafter known as, his breath caught, Elijah Crane. He looked up at Silas. It says Crane. That's the idea. But, Eli's throat tightened. I didn't know if that was Eli. Silas reached across the table, took the pen Sister Margaret had brought, and signed his name at the bottom of the page. His handwriting was rough, practical, the signature of a man who'd spent more years holding reins than pens. Then he slid the paper toward Eli. Your turn. The pen felt heavy in Eli's